Um, the situation is such that the opposition, in other words, the opposition that is not in government, that did not join the war cabinet, has said that if Netanyahu agrees to this hostage exchange deal, it will offer him a safety net, a parliamentary safety net, so that even if he loses these two extremists, he will be able to pass this agreement through the parliament and survive for that day. However, no one in the opposition is offering him a guarantee beyond just this agreement.
Now, for our top story today, ultra-nationalists in Israel are threatening to topple Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government if he agrees to a peace deal set out by the United States, Egypt and Qatar, which President Biden spoke of on Friday. And in an interview with the Sunday Times, Netanyahu's foreign policy advisor, Ophir Falk, said that there will be no permanent ceasefire until all of Israel's objectives are met. Well, joining us now is Noga Tarnopolsky, an Israeli-Palestinian journalist speaking to us from Jerusalem. Noga, thanks for giving us your time, as always.
Hi, Alexis.
Noga, I think before we get into the nitty-gritty of what's happening with the government, tell us what's actually happening in Israel at the moment, because I believe there are sirens going off.
Yeah, honestly, it's almost impossible to describe. We're in the middle of a bad heat wave. It's something like 35 degrees in the shade here in Jerusalem today, which is 1 kilometer up from sea level, so far from the hottest place in the country. A massive fire is spreading throughout the center of the city. In other words, from an urban valley, one of the most ancient places in Jerusalem, the Valley of the Cross, and it's now up in the campus of the Israel Museum, where there are, world treasures are housed. So that's happening. There is a massive barrage from Lebanon, from the terror group Hezbollah, against more than half of the Israeli north, from the city of Katsrin up in the Golan to the city of Akko on the coast. So that part of the country is paralyzed and in bomb shelters. And as you described, we have underway a lot of protests, a lot of pressure from all sides against the prime minister.
I was looking at pictures from Tel Aviv last night. Hundreds of thousands reported to be in the streets urging the government to take the deal. Tell us what's happening at the moment. It seems that the coalition held together with some far-right parties is starting to come apart because I think it's Ben Gvir and another member of the government have said that they will not be supporting the government to go ahead with the Biden-led peace process.
Right. Though the situation, again, is very confusing. So the peace, I don't want to call it placement, the ceasefire hostage release plan announced by Joe Biden is an Israeli plan. It's important to remember that. The American president announced it, but he announced it as an Israeli plan, and the Israeli government has not denied that. So it appears that Biden lost patience with Netanyahu and decided to at least shoehorn him into that position. But the prime minister hasn't expressed himself even regarding what he plans to do. And if, in fact, he personally accepts it, he hasn't spoken out. His office put out two very vague, almost meaningless statements. And as you say, we have these two, extremist, theocratic, nationalist ministers who Netanyahu has crumpled to at every opportunity, every juncture in the last few months, when he has faced the choice if to accept an offer put on the table by the international community, led by the United States, or to instead accept the pressure put on him by his ultra-right wing. At every opportunity, he's chosen the ultra-right wing. This time may be different, might not, but it may be different simply because so much pressure is on him. So, as you said, last night, just in Tel Aviv, there were something like 120,000 people on the streets, more than 150,000 in many locations all over Israel, including here in Jerusalem, and a massive amount of international pressure. And all that said, Hamas has not yet said yes. So I assume that behind the scenes, an immense amount of pressure is also being put on Qatar, that is one of the principal sponsors of Hamas, to at least move towards this deal.
If Benjamin Netanyahu wants to take the deal. Can he go ahead and do that without Ben Gvir and Mr. Smotrich's party? Because between them, they seem to hold about 13 seats. But he's had the support of the main opposition that hold 24 seats. So does Benjamin Netanyahu have to listen to the people he's in a coalition with, or can he rely on the opposition?
So that is a tricky and very important question. First of all, I think we should say that Ben Gvir and Smotrich often threaten to resign if the prime minister does this or that thing. This is not a first. This moment does feel a bit more critical, but it's not a first. They are the kind of ministers who often threaten to resign and then they get their way. And that includes the members of the opposition who joined his small war cabinet at the beginning of the war and have already given him a deadline for this week, for June 8th, that they will quit his war cabinet if he does not have a hostage release deal in place. So again, what we're seeing appears to me to be a coordinated international and domestic effort to really force Netanyahu into saying yes to this deal from public pressure, political pressure. The departure of these two opposition members of his war cabinet could be a big blow because Netanyahu, without them in his own coalition, does not have any ministers with the sort of military experience that would make Israelis feel confidence in his moves as a wartime leader.
Noga, it's always fascinating to get your thoughts on this. Thank you so much, as ever, for giving us your time. Noga Tarnopolsky there, an Israeli-Palestinian journalist speaking to us from Jerusalem and, well, telling us what's going on in Israel. There's fire around Jerusalem and we have a barrage underway from in northern Israel coming in from Lebanon. We'll be keeping you up to date, of course, with all the latest developments around the Israel-Gaza conflict.